Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. I was scrolling through the side, kind of looking at all my list of, we'll call it ETFs and stocks, and trying to find what I think are some of the best opportunities. I'll just sum them up right here of some of the ones that I would be purchasing into personally. Again, this is just my financial opinion. Please don't use this as advice. Definitely do your due diligence deeper into these companies or ETFs if that's something that interests you. So I'm going to share the ones that I was looking at that have some interest, and I'll tell you why I think they look kind of good here. So I was looking down. One of them that struck me, and I'm going to kind of go to stockcharts.com. I'm just kind of go back and forth here. COPX, this is the Global X Copper Miners. I'm going to pull it up on both. And I kind of use both. I switch back and forth. But this one looks really interesting. And what looks interesting on it, this is TradingView, is we've got this massive volume bar right here, like someone's doing some positioning. This volume is massive. We have broken out of this pattern. We broke to the upside. We did a back test, a full back test with that Omicron, however you want to say it, variant. It's coming up. It looks very strong. And if you guys like ETFs, COPX here looks pretty compelling. It looks really good. And some of the companies that I was looking at, like BHP is right at support. That might be another one that you want to look into, BHP. Glencore is another one that's right at support. These things are at massive supports, like big breakout levels. And you want to buy them on the retest or the return move of these back, these huge back tests. And it doesn't look too bad here for Glencore. I think it was it Tech Cominco? Tech Cominco looks okay. Freeport McMoran looks pretty good. The COPX looks pretty dang good. Southern Copper, let me back out here. Southern Copper is right on its long-term support level. I mean, this is a big move down from 80 to 60 bucks, and I think we're probably gonna see a pretty big move here. And this is a very large pattern. If I were to put like a projected move in here and try to, I know it's gonna shrink up, it's gonna get logged up, but 9,800 bucks from 60, it pays a really good dividend of 5.54%. So some of these are looking really good right now. Another one that I saw that was looking really good was REMX. I call it the double booty bottom. We've got the double booty, or maybe you could think of it as something else with the neckline, if you know what I mean. But we're coming up, and look at the right-hand side here from about March 2020. Look at the volume here. Massive volume stepping in. The candlesticks are big and large. They've got very large buying pressure all through here. I think we could see a much, much greater upside on REMX, and this is an ETF. It's a rare earth strategic metals ETF. It's the ticker symbol is REMX. We kind of zoom in here, and what I'm kind of seeing here is it kind of, you get kind of through this point here, and if this thing's it's breaking, it looks like to me to the upside here. And if this thing can maintain some momentum, I think we're going to see a good sized breakout potentially. And this is a very good booty bottom to be booty jumping from. So I think, this looks pretty good to me. I bought it down here. I've been holding on, and I added a little bit more just because it looks like a really good, it could potentially have a pretty good move. And some of these other ones, like MP Materials, doesn't look too bad. It's got a nice big basing pattern kind of coming up. Not basing pattern, but a nice, good, strong move. Created a continuation consolidation pattern, and we're breaking to the upside of that pattern, and it looks quite good compared to a lot of other sectors and companies. And I don't know if I'd be buying in this second, but LIT, lithium, it's continuing to remain strong. I don't know if I'd be a buyer up here. I'm just kind of looking at some of these other ones. But looking at REMX kind of through our old I use stock charts a lot, but this thing looks pretty dang strong. It looks like it wants to take off. And the reason I'm looking at this is if you look through this section in here, you can kind of see that there's a bunch of resistance through here. And we're breaking through that resistance, and it's going to cheat a run here. And if you guys haven't been on the channel for a little while, I refer to companies that put in these patterns and they start to break the pattern. I consider them cheetahs. And what a cheetah is, it's very fast, it's very strong, very powerful. It breaks these psychological containment areas where humans have put these psychological containment on it, breaks through it, and it just runs. I mean, it runs and it runs and it runs. And that's when you want to be invested. That's when you need to sit tight. You get these consolidation periods where things they come from wide openings and then they diverge usually into a pressure point where the buyers start to equal the sellers, and it just converges right to a point, and then it snaps and breaks. And then you'll see a big run. Sometimes they can do it the opposite. They can do like a wide, we'll call it a broadening pattern. It's a little bit more rare, like a megaphone or something like that. But I like these ones where they come down and they're breaking to the upside. It looks pretty compelling. And with COPX as well, breaking to the upside, doing a retest, lots of volume. I mean, that's it. None of this stuff is 100%. None of it's 100%. So what you got to do, in my opinion, is you search for companies. And what you want to do is you want to look at all these charts. You look at all the stuff that's undervalued or that you think is going to do well in the future because of supply-demand characteristics, which is market balances. So there could be a deficit in the future. You could have a very good ratio, something like a platinum. Right now, I'd be looking at, and a silver, definitely the physicals, and even some of the mining companies. But when you see these things and they're coming to a point, and what you want to do is you want to look at all these undervalued assets. You identify the ones that have good chart patterns like REMX, and then you say, okay, it's go time. It's go time. It's going to break, and then you're going to see a move. And if I back out here, and I'll show you kind of what I mean here, I'm just going to back out a little bit. All right, so here's a one-year pattern. This is a pattern that was a consolidation pattern that was coming up, and it was squeezing up. And what I mean by squeezing, we were getting lower highs and higher lows, all squeezing to a point. And then it broke to the upside right here, and it's like, it's go time. Get in it. And then it runs for a little bit. Then you can get out. You can let it consolidate for a little bit, or just hold on. Depends what you want to do. We consolidate again. And if you look at the patterns, if you look at this pattern here and how it worked its way out, it's more or less the same pattern as this guy right here. It had a kind of little pullback. It's got a little jive to it. It came up to a top. It came and created like a V bottom. Here's your V bottom. And then you kind of come through this pattern, and it's just breaking. The pattern is complete. And I think we're going to see potentially a pretty good move higher here in REMX. So this one, I would say, is probably the most compelling of anything I see at the moment. And so same with COPX. I've looked a lot, there's a couple of diversified mining companies that look pretty good. Another one that I was looking at was lumber. I don't know a good way to play lumber, but this one is also looking very good. It's not a booty bottom, but it's, you know what? It could be a triangular force. How about that? So here's what we have, and sometimes you can draw them like this. I'm gonna step way back out, and what we have is a very long pattern all the way back to the 90s, mid 90s. And it was consolidating the entire time. And what happened was we built a pressure point. We broke to the upside in 18. And then, I don't know, we had the C19. That something happened before C19. We had problems in the market, and things kind of came back. The commodity market was ready to take off. They did QE. They did a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm sure they decided that they needed to print a bunch of money and whatever. But obviously they needed some sort of, we'll call it, trigger for that. But C19 came, they printed some money, and then lumber couldn't be contained anymore, and it shot higher. You can tell by the lows. Low, higher low, higher low, and then it just ripped. Now, what happened was it never really did a return move. it just started ripping, and it was a little bit of a return move, but it ripped up higher, and this is kind of your return move coming back down. And we're seeing this kind of consolidate, and it's building steam here. We're getting higher lows. If this thing breaks here, we could see a decent sized move. I don't really necessarily know how to play lumber that well, but I watch these patterns, and it's a 1, 2, and then a 3, and this thing could break. It could come back down one last time, or it could break right here, right now. But it's one to watch, and I think it's getting close to be ready to go. And again, it could come back one. The third leg can either just rocket shoot higher, or it could come all the way back down, or it could come part way down. This right-hand side is difficult to say what it's exactly going to do. But again, it's looking like it's going to take another run here at some point soon. And again, it could come back before the run, or it could just run. But it's setting up. And I know some of you guys, sometimes when I'm going over a chart and I'm going day to day to day, sometimes I don't know where it's going to go if it's in between. Like, for instance, if I'm watching this on a day to day and I get into a scenario like this, I'm going to tell you this thing can go either up or down. I don't know which way it's going to go. I need to find a turning point. I need to see a pattern like this pattern develop and put in a bottom where you call this is you're coming into a downtrend, and then you have to basically stop the movement and go sideways. This one, it was going sideways for a very long time, and then it broke the pattern, came back and did kind of a back test, and then just launched. But that's what I look for. Now, do I think this is the most compelling setup? No, I think REMX, to me, is a great setup because we've got this downward movement, sideways booty bottom, and then we've got the upward movement. And the upward movement's just starting because we're launching from this very large base that we've created. And that's what I like about it. And that's where you get those big launches from. If you look at lithium, this was the big base that you created. We broke through that resistance, and that's the launching pattern to launch from. And when you get away from this base, it's sometimes they get tired, sometimes they can maintain it. It's just your risk reward goes down the further you get away from this basing pattern, and it goes up. So I think the risk reward here is still pretty good. And I think rare earth metals and this volume down here, I mean, it aligns very well. So that's one that I'm definitely looking at. And COPX is another one where we're still somewhat close to this basing pattern. It's another booty bottom. And downward movement, kind of a double bottom. We broke out. We kind of do this return move. And now we're breaking another pattern. So look at that volume. It looks, I'm hoping this thing can go. I've added, a little bit of COPX, not much, but to my position. So I wanted to just share that with everybody and what I look for in charts. I look for those consolidation patterns. These look pretty good to me, and these are the areas that I would be looking at. In oil and some of these other sectors, uranium, I'm not as quick to jump on. I don't see the patterns yet, so I'm just waiting. I'm being patient, and future income, I'll deploy it to those when they look good to me. But these right here, right now, they look pretty compelling, and I can kind of, spread out my portfolio and keep riding it higher. If you guys like this analysis, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.